everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him.
Jane. I'm no C. We did this morning together. I just have to say, Englewood, I'm so grateful that we have a 10:45 service. So thanks for that. That's got to be real fun. Mine? Oh, there it is. Hi. There we go. I think we're cursed when it comes to microphones during sermon time. It's just a thing that we deal with.
All right, there we go.
All right, bingo.
I will tell you, I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, that's got to be rough.
It is.
Okay.
But it was nice to have the rest of your day.
That's true. That's true.
My nap is a little bit longer than normal.
That's true. So for those of you that don't know my good friend, this is Pastor Shane Moore from Wesley United Methodist Church. Shane and I have been hanging out pretty much since I got to town. I'm a big believer in having clergy friendships and connections. I'm taking that off. And so it's always really important to me that I've got people that I can connect with, that I can wrestle with, that we can talk to about different things. And so when I first got here, one of the things I did was email you and just kind of say, hey, you want to grab coffee? And came to your office and realized you were a Kansas City Chiefs fan in a sea of Seahawks fans. And I felt very seen and knew that we were going to get So Shane and I meet every month, and we have coffee. A lot of times we talk about life and ministry and challenges and things that, we're wrestling with. But a lot of times we also get to wrestle with Scripture. We get to nerd out on theology and talk about some of those things together because we're proclaimed nerds. 6 months ago maybe, we were having coffee and we said, wouldn't it be cool if we could figure out how to do a sermon series together where we were kind of preaching on the same thing, but we could do this like we're doing today and then switching pulpits like we're going to do next week. And we started trying to figure out what was the right topic for that. Shane told his church this morning that we were really excited to talk about forgiveness. I made a face, and so maybe you were, but I was not. This is a hard topic.
It is. But it's a topic that people want to hear and talk about. So maybe it's not easy. Maybe we weren't excited, but we knew it's something we had to do.
And I think one of the things that appealed to me, at least, about this was I think it helps to know when we talk about forgiveness in conversation and in relationship and in community that we're not the only one that struggles with forgiveness, right? Like that there's camaraderie and the fact that this is hard, this is difficult.
Yeah, even just this morning before church, I had a member of Wesley come to me and say, you guys could not have picked a better time to talk about this because of some things in their own life. Yeah. So I think you're right. It is, when we talk about things, it frees people up to also wrestle and express their own struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was really honest with y'all last Sunday. Forgiveness has been hard for me. It's been a journey. I've had to wrestle with it hard. I think my knees bear bruises and scars from some of those wrestlings. I know it's not an easy topic that's come to you either.
No, it's not. It's something I've struggled with a lot of my life, but it's something, I'm a true believer that when we talk about things, it opens up not just for other people, but for ourselves. Mm-hmm. A quote that I shared with you that a colleague shared with me is, too often we judge our insides by others' outsides. Mm-hmm. So we think, well, I think Christy has life together. And I say, I want to be Christy when I grow up.
Oh, shame.
And she looks at me and goes, no, you don't.
No, you really don't.
But so I feel like, I'm struggling, she's not. But when we talk about it, we recognize we're not alone.
Right. And I think this is one of those areas where and I think there's different reasons for it. Good grief. I think there's different reasons for it, right? Like, it may be inherited shame from theology. It may be our own embarrassment or not wanting to admit we struggle with it. But I think we're afraid sometimes to say, like, this is difficult for me.
Well, and I shared this last week at Wesley. I think we go back to being kids when we're told to, ask for forgiveness, to say you're sorry, you say you forgive them, and move on. And somewhere back in our mind, we think it needs to be that simple.
Right.
We think it's just that forgive and forget, someone took my toy, when really, it is so much deeper and more complex than that.
Yeah, I think forgiveness is one of the hardest things we have to wrestle with as followers of Jesus and just as humans, as people.
I think forgiveness can be just as difficult, if not more, than understanding grace.
Ooh, that's a whole nother coffee for you and I. So this conversation today falls on what we often celebrate here at Sunday. I'm going to do this and see if this helps. And so last year, we started kind of celebrating and honoring Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and talking about how his words and his legacy are something for us still to wrestle with today. And so as we are here in MLK Sunday weekend, we thought it would be good and appropriate to actually use some of the quotes from Dr. King to help kind of guide our conversation today. And so as we started looking at Dr. King, we talked this morning at your building about how there's different levels to King, right? Thank you so much. To the rescue. There's different levels to Dr. King. There is some of the easy stuff, right? We called him Cozy King today, but this is like meme King, right? Like it makes a great Facebook message, or, teapot, like put it on a coffee mug kind of Dr. King. And so, but then there's other levels that are challenging and hard, and you have to wrestle with them. A lot of his more challenging conversations are published in a book called Radical King. And if you've not experienced that or checked that out, we have a copy in the library, and I encourage you to do that because some of those will really step on your toes. They will force you to wrestle. And so one of those quotes that you and I came across as we just kind of started texting back and forth over the last few months, different things that jumped out to us as we were reading King and preparing, is this quote that says, "Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It's a constant attitude." What was your first thought when you came across that?
Well, again, it goes back to what I said about when we're kids. I think we think forgiveness is just, oh, someone hurt me, I do it, I move on. King reminds us that it's the constant in life. It's an attitude we take.
Yeah.
I think about every day forgiving one another. As you said that, a story that just came to mind is whenever I work with a family going through the end of life, I always say three of the most important things is to ask forgiveness, grant forgiveness, and give permission. And it's because forgiveness is such a role, and actually those three things come from my own life. When my grandmother was dying, I was in college, the pastor told my grandfather to do that. And I'll never forget being at my grandma's bedside, and Grandpa asked for forgiveness. They had been married 2 months. Grandma had been ironing his shirt, and she left the iron on too long and burnt his shirt, and Grandpa blew up at her. But he had held on to this. I mean, this was 44 years later. And
Must have been one heck of a favorite shirt.
It must have been. And not so much in this, like, remembering it every day, how dare she do this, but in this, like, wow, I was holding on to this, and I haven't really let go. And I'll never forget, he asked for forgiveness, and then he walked to the next room, and my grandma looks at me and goes, I have no idea what he's talking about. So I also think it's the idea that sometimes we're the ones that are holding on to it when the other person has no idea.
Ooh, that's good.
And so it is an attitude we take to move on. It's not something I have to expect from you. It's something within me, an attitude. I can't change your attitude.
Right.
I can only control my attitude.
You can change my attitude if you bring me coffee. I mean.
Or I let you hang out with my daughter.
That's true. I do like your daughter.
My daughter likes Christy more than she likes me.
I like that you said that because I think that's really important, right? We have the scorecard, right? We rehearse the things that have hurt us or the things that bother us. And when we see someone, we experience the trigger and all the emotions that come with that. And so I think it is really important to kind of point that out, right? Like when we talk about forgiveness, I said this morning at your building. I was reading some writings from Desmond Tutu this weekend, who's one of my favorites. And I came across, he wrote an entire book on forgiveness, if you want something to read that'll really challenge you and bless you. And in there he said, forgiveness is an act of self-liberation. And that resonated with me so much. I had to put the book down and I had to just kind of let that, marinate in my mind and my spirit. And it liberates us from so many things, right? I think about like physically what a resentment and anger does to me, right? Like it makes my shoulders tense. It makes me not sleep good. I get kind of cranky. Like it has an impact on my body. And so like I'm liberating myself physically from those effects. I'm liberating myself from the exhaustion of just constantly, feeling those feelings and those emotions. There's something really beautiful about seeing that as an act of self-liberation and a constant attitude that we choose.
Yeah, and I mean, don't just there's scientific studies that show forgiveness leads to better mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health.
Yeah.
But I also think it's liberating and it's a constant act, as King said,
right.
Or an attitude, because, I shared with you, but in my own family, there was a gentleman who did some terrible things to my family. And for the longest time, I could only refer to him as the backside of a donkey. Mm-hmm. But when I started using his name, I mean, it took me 10 years after the fact, but when I stopped doing that, it liberated me. Yeah. Like I can now think about him, mention his name without being triggered.
Right.
And I have no idea where he is or what he's doing, but it liberated me from all that hurt and pain and fear.
Yeah.
Because fear is such a powerful emotion. And so I was always afraid of what was going to happen next.
So lean into that with me for a minute.
Okay.
I think some of us are afraid to forgive. Like, what is it going to look like if I let go of that? Like this thing that I've held on to and that I've gotten really comfortable and cozy with, right? Like, what happens when I let go of that? What's going to replace that? Like, I think there's some fear that keeps us a lot of times from forgiving.
Yeah, I think it's the fear of, it's something we know. Yeah. And it becomes a comfort for us. I mean, it almost becomes like that weighted blanket we have to have to sleep at night. And it's the only thing we know, so we're afraid to let it go. We're afraid to say, we're afraid to say, I don't remember how to live without this. Yeah. I don't remember what life was before this event, or this person said that. And the unknown is one of the most scary things we can face.
Absolutely.
So I would rather live in fear than face the future. I mean, I tell my congregation regularly, my life motto is expect the worst and be surprised when it doesn't happen.
I could say so many things right now, but I'm just going to let you roll.
Coffee this week.
Coffee.
But I think it's because I have lived in such fear at times and through so many things in my own life, those things I haven't forgiven for, but also those things that have just happened to me, that I'm always waiting for that other shoe to drop. And I've gotten better, but I think it plays into that as well, that I don't know what life is without this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we kept diving deeper into King. And I'm going to...
We moved past Cozy King.
We moved past Cozy King. So here last Sunday, I started our time together by saying, I recognize the situation in our world right now, right? We were days after the events in Minneapolis and the murder of Renee Good. We were heavy, and we still are, spirits were heavy. And one of the things I was wrestling with was, how do you start a conversation on forgiveness in the midst of what we're seeing happen right now, right? And so one of the things that I said was forgiveness is relational, and it comes in the context of relationships. And then I had coffee with Shane. So you and I sat down, and how'd it go? How was your Sunday? How was our conversation? And I said, I kind of tried to frame this and talk about this a little bit. And you said, I found this quote. I want to share it with you. And I think all of the coffee shop heard me kind of go, ugh. This is a hard one. So I'm going to let you read it.
Oh, yeah. So I found this quote where King says, what then is forgiveness? First of all, it is a pardon. It is a fresh start, another chance, a new beginning. Second, forgiveness is a process of life and the Christian weapon of social redemption. Forgiveness is always spoken of for others. Give Peter's attempt to put it in legal and statistical terms. Here then is the Christian weapon against social evil. We are able to go out with the spirit of forgiveness, heal the hurts, right the wrongs, and change society with forgiveness. Of course, we don't think this is practical. This is the solution of the race problem. And you went,
So I don't like the word weapon.
right.
I don't like the word weapon in this sentence because, as we talked about last week, I think there's already way too much weaponization of the concept of forgiveness and people that are made to feel bad or shameful or guilty because they wrestle with it and because they're human and because they struggle with it. But I think the other thing in here, Shane, that was hard and we've had to process, and this is why, right? When scripture says iron sharpens iron, like having people you can process with is really important. Because I think as we sat there that day and all the people that were there listening to us go round and round and round, they got a free show that day. But a lot of what we were struggling with was this idea of social redemption, right? Which takes us a little past that context of just relational connection. And like, I'm frustrated with you, so I'm extending forgiveness to you, or someone's hurt me and I have to deal with that relationally. What does that look like as what I would prefer to use the language of maybe a tool of social redemption versus the weapon of social redemption? But we started in that space.
Yeah, I think we said this, that we do this with Paul. We think, with Paul, I can just take anything Paul said and apply it to myself. We can't do that, by the way, and we can't do it with King. King is talking to people going through something very specific at that time. Now, we both said if King was writing this day, he probably wouldn't use the word weapon. Mm-hmm. He'd use something different. Yeah. But King is writing to people who have been intensely hurt by words, actions, deeds of others. Yeah. And he is really telling them the way to go forward, the way to change the world is through forgiving. Yeah. And I imagine, now King is like you and I, when we found this quote, King doesn't have all these beautifully written sermons. He has some, but a lot of it is just notes. Right. And this was just some of his notes. I imagine when he preached this and went farther, he was thinking about specific people in his mind. Mm-hmm. And the people hearing it was like, yeah, I remember when. Mm-hmm. And one of the people we thought about was Bull Connor. Bull Connor was the director of public service in Birmingham. Bull Connor released the dogs on them. He used the fire hoses, which really a fire hose should be a tool of safety, turned it into a weapon. Right. I mean, Bull Connor was the epitome of who King or anyone else could say, that's wrong, that's evil.
Right. And where this led us to struggle was in this place of would King call Bull Connors evil as a person? And we dig into King's writings and the answer is no, right? He talked about how he was subject to an evil ideology and an evil system of thought. But keeping and separating out a human's identity and person versus a system of evil and injustice was something that King talked about, and something that I think was a timely challenge for us to wrestle with. Because I think, honestly, if there is any writing, any person who really can understand part of the emotion that our culture is dealing with right now, when we look at some of the hurts and harms of immigration enforcement, I think of King and the civil rights movement. And knowing so many of his friends and neighbors and the hurt and the harm physically and emotionally and spiritually, and having to challenge the higher road of forgiveness and love.
Well, King was very clear. He said, he always talked about the act of evil. Right. Never used the word evil with a human. And as you were talking, I was thinking about when we think of people as evil, what we might lose. Mm. And an example I saw play out on social media just last week, a family member had posted something on the murder of Renee Good, and all these other people started like, well, she deserved it, all that stuff that we hear. And her fiance said, now I know which one of your friends and family members I never want to meet. Mm. And he didn't necessarily call them evil, but pretty much said, I never want to associate with these people because they're opposite of me. Mm. Not saying that's wrong per se, but what I'm saying is, what might he be missing out? Mm. by treating someone as the other, in my term, I'd say not as a child of God, and saying, what you said is so horrible, I don't want to have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Now, that's easy for me to say.
Right.
That's really hard to do because there are people who say some pretty dumb things that I just want to X out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But when I all of a sudden it becomes evil to me, or they become evil, I'm missing out. And I think about this. In 2010, I was preparing to take 2 weeks of vacation on Monday, and Sunday night I see on the news that we had captured and killed Osama bin Laden.
Mm.
And if you remember that, people were celebrating in the streets and so great and death to evil and all this. And I told my wife, I'm so glad I'm not preaching for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't have to address this. Well, 2 weeks later, I get home, and the local news station reached out to me and said, I would love your response as a Christian pastor. How do you respond not so much to the death, but to people's response to the death?
Yeah.
And I went on the local TV station where I was living and said, I do not believe God takes joy in the death of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some pretty angry letters, but I got so many more people saying, thank you. I also was struggling with how people responded because, yes, what he did was horrible. What he masterminded was horrible. But I believe that God loves.
Right.
I believe that God is there for love and grace. And now, I wouldn't say you or I can't speak for you. Me, I was not personally harmed by the acts of Osama bin Laden. So forgiveness looks different for me than someone who was personally harmed.
Right.
And forgiveness is not the same for anyone. But I have to be willing to move forward.
Yeah. So many of you have met my middle son, Bryson, who's been recovering from knee surgery, so he's not been here for a while. Bryson, for those of you that took the Enneagram class, Bryson's my Enneagram 5. He's my deep philosophical thinker. When Bryson was young, I remember him saying, can we have coffee and read a book together? And I was like, sure, what book do you want to read? And he was like, The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And I was like, you are 10, but sure, let's do that. So a couple of weeks ago, we're sitting at the kitchen table, and Bryson is clearly processing. I can always see the wheels turning. And I was like, what you thinking about? And he said, I'm thinking about the state of the world. And I was like, okay. I said, what are you thinking about the state of the world? And he said, how do we fix this? How are we ever going to heal from this deep division and this absolute unwillingness to find common ground? And he looked at me and expected an answer. And we had a conversation, and it lasted for a while, and Bob tapped out because he gets frustrated when we get philosophical. And I don't know that we found a good answer that night, but I've thought about it a lot since then. And one of the things after you and I left coffee, and I had wrestled with this quote, and I'm still thinking about Bryson's question, and I kind of had this aha moment, Shane, as I was driving, and I thought, King is talking about forgiveness as a weapon, as a tool, as a means to social redemption. I think really, right, this willingness to hold and honor the image of God in all people, ultimately, that is the method of social redemption, right? That I might not agree with you, I might not like things that are happening, I might not agree with things you're participating or complicit in, but if I am willing to dig down deep inside of myself and honor the image of God in every person, I hold out hope for healing, not only in relationships, but in our culture, in our society, in our world, in our country.
Well, and I think the key to holding hope is it's not from, but a great example comes from one of your favorite TV shows of all time, which is
Ted Lasso. Oh, yes.
Be curious, not judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're curious, I say, man, what harm did you experience in life that made those words come to mind?
Yeah.
When I'm curious, I go, oh man, I can't believe that person did that, but something happened for them, and that led them to that. Mm-hmm. But when I'm judgmental, I go, well, how dare you?
Yeah.
There's such a difference. And when we're curious, we are willing to explore humanity.
Mm-hmm.
We're willing to explore creation and where they reacted, how God was at work, where they weren't loved. When we're curious, I would say forgiveness is a byproduct of curiosity.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. So Lizzie read our verse for today. She read it out of the New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. As we were talking over coffee that day, we both like to look at scripture from different passages and translations. And I said, man, I wonder what Eugene Peterson's version of this is in the Message. I'm just curious. And as I read it, I was like, oh, Shane, this is good. This is challenging. So I'm going to read this with you, and we're going to close our conversation kind of processing a few of these pieces really quickly. So it says this, that same passage that Lizzie read for us, and the Message translation says, so, chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It is your basic all-purpose garment. Never be without it. Let the peace of Christ keep you in tune with each other, in step with each other. None of this going off and doing your own thing, and cultivate thankfulness. Let the word of Christ, the message, have the run of your house. Give it plenty of room in your lives. Instruct and direct one another using good common sense and sing your hearts out to God. Let every detail in your lives, words, actions, and whatever, be done in the name of the Master, Jesus, thanking God the Father every step of the way. What jumped out to you in there?
Well, earlier when we said that so often we like fear, like I'm afraid, fear, such, it's because we put on fear every day. I know people who are so fearful to leave their house. I am fearful of things not turning out the way I expect. Or we're so afraid to do things that every day that's a conscious choice to wake up and put on the garment of fear. And so the first thing that jumped out at me is the wardrobe of God. And I like that even better because the New Revised Standard Version says clothe yourself. But when I think of wardrobe, clothe yourself is, okay, I have one set of clothes I can put on. A wardrobe to me is a complete style.
You got a lot of choices.
You got a lot of choices, but it's not just a shirt. It's socks and shoes and belt and everything. That everything we put on is compassion, kindness, humility, discipline, and forgiveness. Yeah. It's not just, a hat I have to put on or a t-shirt. It's all, and like you said, it's many choices. It's a beautiful wardrobe.
Right.
And so the first thing is like, every day, how do we make that choice? To say, today, I'm going to put on this. Something that was resonating in my brain earlier, but I didn't get it out this morning, is I think of Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, when Morrie Shorts, the professor, talks about how he allows him, he's suffering from ALS, for those that don't know, he's a professor, and he allows himself every morning to say, life sucks.
Yeah.
He allowed himself to be like, but he goes, I only gave myself 5 minutes before I had to say, okay, what am I going to enjoy about today? Who am I going to love? Who am I going to have an experience with? So I think the thing is not to say that, first thing I do is wake up and put on those garments. Right. Give yourself some time.
Right.
But when you decide to say, I'm ready to experience the day, what are you clothing yourself with?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a daily choice, right? Like you can't just say, I'm putting it on once, I'm sleeping in it forever, and I'm never taking it off, right? You have to choose every day. Okay, today it is hard, and here's the pieces of me that aren't comfortable or maybe are just a little bit more difficult than normal. But like today I'm putting on love. Today I'm putting on compassion. Today I'm putting on grace. Today I'm putting on the willingness to forgive and the willingness to see the potential and the hope and the image of God in all people.
And I like what you said. It's not just one outfit, like you just put on, sleep in it, because I have to experience and show love different times.
In different ways.
Yeah. Forgiveness is different.
Absolutely.
And so some days I may have to put on more kindness than forgiveness. And so it truly is. I mean, just think about every day we decide how we're going to dress based for what we're doing.
Right.
And we have to do the same thing with the God's wardrobe.
I bet my wardrobe probably has a lot of sweaters of patience. I would always have, because I think that's one of the struggles, right? Like sometimes I have to think about it in pieces like that and think, okay, that may be the first thing that I need, like the first layer, because everything else, if I'm not patient, I can't love. If I'm not patient, I can't be kind in some spaces. And so thinking about that, breaking that down, like I like the way that Eugene Peterson does in this passage. The thing that jumped out to me in here as well is where he talks about being in tune with one another, in step with one another. None of this going off and doing your own thing. Man, that temptation is big, and it is great to say, that part doesn't apply to me today. I'm going to do it this way. And, I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to wear that piece. I'm just going to do this. This is kind of this call that says, I mean, you can, but then you're not choosing the wardrobe, right? Like it's this piece that says, you've got to choose to put it on. You've got to choose to walk in it. You've got to choose to show up in the places where God's calling you to be and showing love to the people.
Well, as you say that, I was thinking, I'm not the only one, I'm sure, who wakes up and goes to my spouse or something and goes, does this look good today? Does this fit the occasion? That sometimes someone needs to say, no, you need to take a breath. You need to think about how you're loving others. It is that relational piece. We need each other for it.
Right, absolutely.
And so I think about times in my own life where I've had to have someone kind of say, hey, take a breath.
Yeah.
Practice love.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't an easy topic, right? It's something that we will all continue to wrestle with, but I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful that you allow me to wrestle with life and ministry and all the pieces. So,
well, and this is what community means.
Right.
It's easy to say, well, Shane and Christy have masters in this. Well, you have a doctorate, so that's why you're where you are. But this is what we're all called to do. To read scripture and wrestle with it and say, man, this is not easy. Right. If you and I could stand here and give them the 10 steps to forgiveness, we'd be millionaires. It's not easy. It is a difficult process. Yeah. And, one of my favorite ideas of Christianity is to wrestle. A good friend of mine says the number one rule of doing theology or studying God is admitting you might be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always red flag if someone's like, I am certain. Like, I don't know that any of us can be certain no matter how many degrees we have when it comes to all of these pieces. I think that as we wrestle with this individually, right, we also wrestle with this collectively as a faith community. What does that look like to be a community that walks in forgiveness and holds hope and holds the potential in all people and is willing to be involved in the work of social revitalization by holding out that hope and that potential for change and love and mercy. So I want to invite us in that spirit to grab our hymnals, and we're going to sing hymn number 463, Renew Your Church. What does this look like for us to take this concept and apply it to us as a body and renew us as a faith community and how we walk this out in our community and in our lives and our relationships? Will you join me?
Renew your church, our ministries.